have you back. This is the South African Morning. Now, Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, it is to you. President Cyril Ramaphosa has appointed the chair of the State Capture Inquiry, Raymond Zondo, for the top job. And, of course, in the judiciary, that's where he will sit. That decision follows consultation with the Judicial Service Commission and leaders of parties in the National Assembly. But eNCA's Thulasizwe Simelane joins me now to weigh in on this appointment. And Thula, good to have you as always, making your inaugural entrance to the South African Morning. Let's talk about it, the journey that Raymond Zondo has had leading up to his appointment last night. How would you describe that journey?
Well, Tumelo, this was a bold move by President Cyril Ramaphosa. It was a move that went against what the Judicial Services Commission had recommended, that he should appoint Justice Mandisamaya as the Chief Justice, Judge Mandisamaya, Judge President of the Supreme Court of Appeal. But of course, he was well within his rights to do that, President Ramaphosa, because the JSC does not appoint the Chief Justice. They merely are to be consulted, actually. And he had done that. He had consulted them, and the decision ultimately is the president's decision. And he has decided that Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, it is to be for all of us. The now Chief Justice Raymond Zondo is a man who's, not a stranger to all of us. Having chaired the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, and also you'll remember in those interviews when he was quizzed about the period of chairing the commission itself and the dangers that lurked at every turn from time to time, and the threats that he faced. And I understand that even during the July unrest, his life was under threat. He's a man whose roots come from, he had served in the labor court, really rooted in labor law, as are a number of these other judges that we've seen being interviewed over a period of time before the JSC. But also it's, an interesting appointment because he has been acting as he has been Deputy Chief Justice, and you'll all remember the time when Dikgang Moseneke was Deputy Chief Justice, and there was a view that said he had been overlooked when it came to the point of appointment. Yeah. It's not a natural progression from Deputy Chief Justice to Chief Justice, but the way that President Ramaphosa has set it up makes it quite interesting that he has said already that he'll be nominating Judge President of the Supreme Court, Mandisamaya, for the position of Deputy Chief Justice, which makes you wonder what the path is, given that, Chief Justice Raymond Zondo has about 2 years left before he has to retire.
Right. I want to go back to the JSC interviews because that was an opportunity for South Africans who haven't had the now Chief Justice profile beforehand to get a glimpse into the work he has done, the court cases he has presided over, and obviously the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. In your view, did those interviews bring any clarity to his work? I spoke to Advocate Mudidi Mamanya earlier on saying that they didn't necessarily allow us an opportunity to get to know the now Chief Justice well, obviously because they disseminated and others even, described them as compromising interviews and didn't really give us that glimpse into the work that he has done previously.
Not necessarily this round of interviews, Tumelo, in terms of getting all of us to know him better. I would say that moment came when, some years ago when he was interviewed for the Constitutional Court. There's that famous interview where the former Chief Justice, Mogoeng, asks him to talk about his background and how he grew up. And that's where there's this emotional scene that plays out where he's reflecting, Judge Zondo at the time, reflecting on how he was helped by a man. Basically, he was poor, and when he grew up in a poor household, and when he wanted to pursue his legal studies, there wasn't, much money to go around, and basically this man assisted him and said, after all these years, when he was done studying, he went back to him to say, how can I repay you? What terms of repayment? And the man said to him, well, you can repay me by doing, unto others what I've done to you. And he broke down. Yeah. We saw that kind of a person in Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. But we've also seen that he's a man who stands his ground, haven't we, Tumelo, in that when the commission was being challenged left, right, and center, he was quite clear that the work of the commission will continue and will be completed. I remember when there was a time when there was a bullet that had been fired, I think, into the offices of the Commission of Inquiry offices in Parktown, and it had happened over a weekend. And on the Monday, he made a statement and said, this will not stop the work of the commission. The work of the commission will continue, will forge ahead. I suppose controversy came in when the questions were being asked by the Commissioner, Julius Malema, about meetings that Chief Justice Zondo has had with former President Jacob Zuma. You'll remember that whole controversy and questions about whether or not they have a relationship, a prior relationship, a familial relationship. And in the end, we found out what the one meeting was about that happened between them in Durban and at the house in Forest Town, where Chief Justice Raymond Zondo says he had gone to see Mr. Zuma about a matter of national importance. At these interviews, we found out that matter of national importance was his concern, Mr. Zondo's concerns about Mr. Zuma's supporter, Julius Malema at the time, saying that he would kill for Zuma. Yeah. And my own sense was that this is something that the Chief Justice could have dealt with much earlier on. It really didn't have to linger and create all that controversy, because he says he had gone to say to Mr. Zuma, I'm worried that if someone is saying they're willing to kill for you, it doesn't bode well for our democracy. It could be dangerous.
And just briefly before I let you go then, Thulasizwe, I mean, I'm sure you have seen reaction following that announcement by the President yesterday afternoon. How has his appointment been received?
Well, I think it's been well received. I think many people are welcoming it because in him, you know that we have a man who, it's continuity because he has been acting in the position for quite a long time, but also as deputy to Mogoeng, but also we know his jurisprudential track record. For instance, that whole judgment around the use of marijuana, it comes to mind, it springs to mind immediately. But also, if I'm not getting it wrong, no, in fact, let me not do that in case I get it completely wrong. But it's someone whose track record we know, and it's been well received, except for the criticisms, of course, from the EFF that basically has rubbished the appointment as a reward for allegedly treating President Cyril Ramaphosa with kids' clubs.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thulasizwe Simelane, eNCA anchor, thank you so much for your time. Colleague, this morning, of course, as we talk about the now Chief Justice Raymond Zondo's appointment, we know that that announcement came in yesterday from the President, Gareth, and of course, Judge President Mandisa Maya, of course, now touted as the Deputy President. Of course, this at the back of the JSC, actually recommending her, but we know that the President has the prerogative to make that appointment final.
Yeah, in the end, it's the #1 citizen of the country that makes the decision in the end as well. We're going to continue unpacking this for you. It was great to have Thulasizwe on this as well, and we're going to be speaking to Advocate Paul Hoffman in the next hour as well, just to get thoughts on some of the concerns from the EFF, for example, to the appointment as well. But that word that Thulasizwe, and this is the point I was making at the start of the show, it's the familiar face, the continuity of this man behind us that I think so many people are favouring as well. It's as though simply he had the baton in a loan form as the acting Chief Justice. He's simply picking up the baton full time now and running with it. We're going to continue unpacking for you the reaction to that in the next hour.